The first wrong thing that afternoon was not the pen with Anna's name on it. It was the way the girl at the front desk told me where to stand. I had come in carrying a paper sack from Delaney's Deli, with Claire's turkey on rye, no tomato, and a large coffee with 1 cream, same as Thursdays for the last 6 years, ever since she started keeping late hours at the office. The girl behind the reception desk couldn't have been more than 23. Blonde ponytail, little silver cross at her throat, nails the color of pink cough syrup. She smiled at me the way people smile at old men in pharmacies. "Mr. Mercer," she said, soft and careful, "if you'll just wait right here, Miss Mercer's tied up for a few minutes." Right here was not the chair by Claire's office door. It was a narrow stretch of runner rug between the ficus and the side table, stacked with parenting magazines nobody in that office ever read. I stood there with the warm paper sack in one hand and the coffee tray in the other and looked past her into the hall. Claire's office door was half open. I could see the corner of her desk, the brass lamp, the framed certificate from Ohio State, and the blue cardigan she kept folded across the back of her chair because the air conditioning in that building always ran too cold. 41 years married, and somehow I was being parked like a repairman who'd shown up early. I gave the girl a little nod because men my age learn to swallow things in public. "Sure," I said. "Just brought her lunch." "She's with someone," the girl said, lowering her voice for no reason I could hear. "Best not to interrupt her flow today." Her flow. I set the coffee tray down on the side table beside a dish of peppermints and a stack of brochures about adolescent resilience. Through the front windows, I could see July sunlight bleaching the sidewalk and the hood of my old Ford out in the lot. Claire's office sat over a florist shop on Main in Chillicothe, the kind of building with tall second-story windows and stairs that creaked no matter how many times they got tightened. She called it Mercer Family Counseling, though the family part had always felt more hers than mine. I fixed their porch steps one spring, patched drywall in the waiting room after a pipe leak, changed out the deadbolt when the old one started sticking. Useful things. Things with screws and measurements. Claire had a way of thanking me for those jobs that made me feel like a neighbor she kept around because he owned tools. The receptionist went back to typing. Her keyboard clicked quick and cheerful. Somewhere down the hall, a door shut. Then a low voice started up. Then another. Soft office voices. Everything in that place was soft. The carpet, the lamps, the watercolors of barns and fields, the way everybody said difficult things like they were laying blankets over furniture. I used to think Anna hated that tone. When she was 16, she said her mother could make a tornado sound over managed. Claire laughed when she said it. I didn't. I was the kind of father who heard smart mouth in everything back then. That thought still has teeth in it, even now. Anna had been gone 6 years. Even in my own mind, I still used gone because missing was a word for posters and patrol cars and television reporters. Missing was something people said at church suppers when they touched your arm and looked at you too hard. Gone was a word you could carry to the mailbox and to the grocery store and into bed at night without feeling like the whole town was watching you do it. I should say I never stopped looking. Not really. But after the first year, looking changed shape. It became websites late at night, old tips revisited, county deputies who knew my number, women at gas stations I'd catch out of the corner of my eye because for 1 second the hair looked right. Claire had stopped talking about active hope somewhere around year 3. She moved into a tidier kind of grief after that, better dressed, better organized. She started counseling more, sleeping less, walking every morning before daylight. She did not say Anna's name unless somebody else did first. The girl at the desk glanced up again. "Would you like me to let her know you're here?" There was something about the wording that sat wrong, as if she had not already done that, as if whether Claire knew I was there belonged to the girl. "She knows my truck," I said. She saw me pull in. The girl gave me a patient smile. "I'll still check." She rose and crossed the hall. But she did not go inside Claire's office. She knocked lightly on the frame, leaned in just enough to murmur something, then came back. She said, "Just another minute." She had her answer. I had mine. I picked up the coffee tray and the lunch sack and stepped toward the office before I could talk myself out of it. The girl's mouth opened a little, not enough to stop me, just enough to mark that I'd crossed some little invisible line. That bothered me more than if she had put out a hand. Claire's office smelled like lemon furniture polish and the chamomile lotion she kept in a pump bottle on the credenza. The room was empty. That was the second wrong thing. No client. No Claire. Just the lamp on, legal pad open, her reading glasses folded neat beside it. I set the lunch on the corner of her desk and stood there listening. Voices again, farther back now, maybe from the conference room. A copy machine hummed once and fell silent. The receptionist did not follow me in. That silence from the outer office made the whole room feel watched anyway. I looked around because I had been in that office 100 times, and suddenly it felt arranged for somebody who wasn't me. The bookshelves had been moved since I was last there, or maybe just one of them had. There was a narrow gap too, even to look natural, and the rug under the right shelf had a faint drag in the nap, as if something heavy had shifted more than once. I noticed that without meaning to. 39 years on utility crews teaches a man to see when something has been put back not quite right. Then I saw the pen. It lay across a closed leather planner near the edge of the desk, black lacquer with a silver band, polished enough to catch the window light. I knew it before I touched it. Anna got it the week she finished graduate school. Claire had it engraved because Anna always liked fountain pens and old notebooks and things that made her feel, in her words, like a woman in a better century. I remember standing in the kitchen while she twisted the cap off that pen and grinned at the inscription. Anna Louise, merci. She had laughed and said, "Now if I leave it somewhere, at least they'll know exactly who failed to be responsible." I picked it up off Claire's desk with 2 fingers at first, like it might burn. The metal was warm, not dusty, not packed away in a box of old things. Warm, like it had been used recently. My throat tightened in a way I have never liked admitting. I turned the pen over, and there was her name. Same clean engraving, same tiny scratch near the clip from when she dropped it on our back patio and said that proved fine taste was wasted on her. Behind me, out beyond the office door, I heard the receptionist laugh at something. Not loud, just enough. Life going on. I stood there staring at my daughter's name. Claire had told me years ago the pen was probably lost in whatever apartment Anna had last rented before she disappeared. She said it one evening while drying a wine glass, like she was naming some small casualty in the larger wreckage. I had believed her because what else was I supposed to do? Take inventory of ghosts. There was weight to the pen that felt odd in my hand. A fountain pen, yes, but slightly heavier toward the barrel. I twisted at the cap out of habit. Nothing. Then my thumb found a seam lower down, near the engraved band. I pressed without thinking. Something clicked. It was not a loud sound, more like the quiet catch of a cabinet latch releasing. I turned my head toward the bookshelf just as it gave a small inward jerk and slid, smooth as a pocket door, 6 inches off the wall. For a second I did not move. My body knew before my mind did that the world had gone bad. Behind the shelf was a narrow opening and a strip of yellow lamplight. Not storage, not plumbing access. A room. I could see the edge of a bed, a folded blanket, the white square of a mini-fridge. The air that came through smelled faintly of bleach and stale fabric and something medicinal underneath. I set the pen down so carefully it made me angry with myself. My shoes sank quiet into the rug as I stepped closer. I remember noticing the hem of Claire's cardigan hanging from the chair, one sleeve turned inside out. I remember thinking very calmly that I had brought her lunch. Then I put my hand on the side of the shelf and slid it farther. The room behind it was bigger than I expected, maybe 12 feet by 10, no windows, just a lamp on a crate-style nightstand and a vent humming overhead. There were books stacked on the floor, a sink in one corner, a dresser, and a twin bed pushed against the far wall under a framed print of a sailboat. On the bed sat a woman in gray sweatpants and an oversized t-shirt, knees pulled up, both hands around one shin like she was holding herself in place. She was thin in the way that stops looking like dieting and starts looking like time did something mean. Her hair was shorter than Anna ever wore it, chopped blunt at her jaw. There was more silver in it than there ought to have been at 34. Her face had sharpened around the cheeks, but I knew it. God help me, I knew it before she even lifted her head all the way. Anna. For one long heartbeat, she just stared at me, not with relief, not with joy, not even with clean fear. It was a look worse than that. The look of somebody watching 2 truths hit each other and not knowing which one would survive. My mouth opened, but nothing useful came out. I had spent 6 years rehearsing every possible first sentence to my daughter if I ever found her again. None of them had anything to do with the hidden room behind Claire's bookshelf. "Anna," I said at last, and my own voice sounded borrowed. She flinched. It was small, Most people might not have seen it. But fathers are built to notice the tiny damage when it belongs to their child. Her shoulders tightened, her hand slipped off her shin. Her eyes darted once past me, toward the open shelf, like she was measuring whether there was time for something to be fixed before someone came back. I took one step in and stopped there. Every instinct I had wanted to cross the room in 2 strides and gather her up, but she did not look like a woman who could bear being rushed. "It's me," I said, which was a foolish thing to say. Of course it was me. Her lips parted. They were dry enough that she had to try twice before words came. "You weren't supposed to find this," she whispered. My chest felt hollowed clean out. "Honey." She shook her head once, sharp and frightened. Not at me exactly, at the whole air around us. I saw then the notebook on the bed beside her, the paper cup with 2 pills still sitting in the bottom of it, the grocery receipt on the crate with today's date, and a wall calendar with neat blue X's marking off days in Claire's handwriting. Today, not years ago, not some emergency Claire had hidden for one awful night and never known how to undo. Today, my fingers curled at my sides. "Anna, I've been looking for you." The words barely left me before I knew from her face they had hit the wrong wall. She stared at me another second, and when she spoke, her voice was so quiet I had to lean to hear it. "She told me you stopped asking." I stood there with her words still hanging between us, and for one ugly second I felt something close to shame before the anger came. Not because I had stopped, I knew I hadn't, but because some buried piece of me had always feared that if Anna ever did hear less from me than from her mother, if the calls thinned out, if the flyers came down, if the sheriff's office stopped returning every message same day, she might think I had done what men like me sometimes do when pain gets too soft to hold. Go quiet. Go to work. Let the women carry the sorrow and call that strength. I took another careful step. "I never stopped," I said. "Not one day." Her eyes moved over my face like she was checking whether I was the man she remembered or the man somebody had spent years describing to her. I had seen that look once before, though I didn't understand it at the time. She was 13, sitting at our kitchen table with a geometry book open, crying because she couldn't make sense of a proof. I'd come in from storm repair bone-tired and told her there was no sense crying over lines on a page. Claire had put a hand on my arm and said, quiet as cream pouring into coffee, "Tom, some people need room before they can think." Anna had looked at both of us then with that same uncertain measuring look, like she was deciding which kind of world she lived in. I'd told myself for years that memory proved I was the one who had failed her first. Now it sat in that room wearing a different face. Behind me, heels sounded in the outer office. Quick, not panicked. Claire never ran when walking hard would do the job. Anna's whole body went tight. "Sit down," she whispered, and then shook her head because even that was wrong. "No, don't." Claire appeared in the opening with one hand still on the side of the shifted shelf. She took in the room in one glance. Me standing 2 steps inside. Anna on the bed, the pen left on the desk outside, the hidden door open too wide. If you didn't know her, you might have thought she stayed calm. I knew better. Calm with Claire was a tool. The more wrong things became, the more precise she got. "Tom," she said softly, like I had tracked mud onto a clean floor. "What have you done?" It hit me so hard because the question came packaged as order. Not "what are you seeing?" Not "how did this happen?" "What have you done?" I turned all the way toward her. "What have I done?" Her eyes went straight to Anna, not me. "Honey, it's all right. Just keep breathing. I know this is upsetting." Anna lowered her gaze at once. That movement more than anything else made my stomach go cold. Claire stepped into the room and kept her voice even. "Tom, I need you to go back out to my office and let me settle this. You walking in here without context was the worst possible way." The worst possible way. I looked at the bed, at the blanket folded sharp enough to cut paper, at the little sink, at the paper cup with pills. On the nightstand sat a grocery store bag with 2 apples, a sleeve of crackers, and a yogurt with the foil peeled halfway back. Nothing in that room looked improvised. It looked managed, maintained, lived around. "What is this?" I asked. Claire did not answer the question. "Anna has had periods of severe disorientation. You know that." "No," I said. "I don't, because apparently I don't know a damned thing." She winced at the curse, not out of fear, but out of habit. the way she always did when I made myself sound exactly like the man she needed me to be. "Please lower your voice," she said. I hadn't raised it. That was when the receptionist appeared at the doorway behind Claire, eyes wide, a legal pad pressed to her chest. Then another woman I recognized from payroll came behind her and stopped short. Nobody shouted. Nobody asked what was going on. They all held still in that trained office way, waiting to see who would name the situation. Claire named it first. "It's okay," she told them. "Tom is upset. Martin needs to come up now." The receptionist nodded and backed away. "Tom is upset." Just like that, I was no longer husband or father or witness. I was the condition in the room. Anna had curled in on herself again. I crouched a little, not all the way down, just enough to bring myself lower. "Anna," I said, "look at me." Claire stepped between us, not touching me, not needing to. "No, not like this." That was the sharpest cut so far, not because she blocked me, but because she did it like the right belonged to her, and the room accepted it. "You don't get to stand between me and my daughter," I said. Her face changed a fraction, not guilt. Annoyance that I had finally named the thing plainly. "I have been the one caring for her," she said. "You have no idea what the last few years have required." "Then whose fault is that?" Anna made a small sound, almost a breath catching. Claire took it at once. "You hear that?" she said to me, still in that mild voice. This is what I was trying to prevent. That was the moment hurt turned cleaner inside me. Harder. I had spent years letting my silence do the talking because I thought silence proved I still had some decency left. Watching her use Anna's fear, which she had built, as evidence against me did something final. I moved past Claire before she could shift again and took the notebook from the bed. "Tom," she said, sharper now. It was a spiral notebook, the cheap kind from Walmart, purple cover bent at the corners. The first pages were blank, then dates. Not every day, just some. Tight handwriting, smaller than I remembered Anna's being. April 8. Mom says no letter today. Says he gets angry when he feels blamed. April 19. I asked if Dad called. She said he's trying to move on in his own way. May 2. I dreamed the back porch light was on and Dad was home from storm work. Woke up and forgot where I was. I stopped reading because my eyes had gone hot. Claire reached for the notebook. "That is private." I pulled it back. "Private? Tom, don't." Anna spoke then, so quietly I almost missed it. "She said it was easier for you." Claire turned to her in a flash. "Anna, sweetheart, that's not what I said." But the lie had arrived too late. You could hear it. I looked at the wall calendar. Blue X's marked every day. On the square for today, in Claire's hand, were the words, "Dr. K, call 11, lunch turkey, meds 2 p.m. On the dresser sat 3 orange prescription bottles lined up like little soldiers. Beside them was a legal pad with columns. Date, time, dose, initials. I picked that up next. Claire's name didn't need to be signed in full. She initialed the way she always did, a crisp looping C and M. Same initials that sat on Christmas cards and donation forms and one frame deed transfer downstairs in our hall closet. Centimed. Centimed. One line caught my eye because the note beside it had been pressed harder than the others. June 12 increased PRN after agitation father. My hand closed over the pad so hard the paper bent. Claire saw the line I was reading. Her mouth flattened. Anna had episodes, she said. Severe ones. She was not safe to be in the world without supervision. Wasn't safe, I said. Or wasn't safe to tell me something. For the first time since entering that room, I saw fear in Claire. Real fear, quick and cold. Then it vanished behind a fence. That is an obscene thing to say. A man's voice came from the office outside. Martin Hale. I knew that voice before I saw him. 30 years our family's attorney. Executor on Claire's mother's estate. The sort of man who wore summer suits in July and still sent handwritten condolence cards. If there was a room in our life where things got made official, Martin eventually stood in it. He appeared at the shelf opening, took in the room, and removed his glasses. "Tom," he said first, like addressing the unstable variable. "Let's slow this down." There it was, the whole thing in one sentence. Claire did not even have to coach him. He came ready. I stood up straight. "You knew about this?" Martin looked at Claire before answering, which was answer enough. "I knew Anna was in a protected arrangement," he said carefully. Claire explained that it was medically sensitive and that your involvement had been complicated. Complicated. I laughed once, but there wasn't any humor in it. That what I am. Complicated. Martin lifted a palm. No one is accusing you of not caring. That one landed deeper than if he had slapped me, because it meant the room had already agreed on the rest. Caring, yes. Fit to matter, no. Claire folded her arms. Tom, this is exactly why I shielded her. You come in with no understanding, no context, and immediately make it about deception instead of illness. I turned and showed Martin the medication pad. Read that. He hesitated. Not long, just enough. That hesitation told me more than words. Men like Martin do not hesitate over paper unless they already know paper can rearrange a room. He took the pad, read 2 lines, then 3. His face did not fall apart. He was too trained for that. But he stopped standing easy. Behind him, another figure hovered in the outer office, Earl Benton, the evening janitor, in his work shirt with his cap folded in both hands. Earl had buffed those floors since Claire rented the place. He looked from me to Anna to Claire, and then down at the carpet. How long? I asked the room, though I was looking at Earl. Nobody spoke. Earl rolled the brim of his cap once. Long enough, he said. Claire swung toward him. Earl, this does not concern you. He kept his eyes low. Ma'am, with respect, I reckon it has for quite a while. Martin turned. What exactly are you saying? Earl swallowed. I'm saying I've seen groceries brought back. Medicines. Laundry, too. After hours, mostly. Been told it was family business and not to ask. The office went quiet in a new way then. Not shocked, not loud, just stripped. I looked at Claire, and for the first time I did not see some twisted version of care. I saw design. I saw how my years of holding back, of letting her take the lead, because she had the better tone and the college words and the calmer face, had helped build the walls of that room as surely as if I'd hung the shelf myself. Anna was watching us all, with a look I knew from old storm nights, when the power went out, and she was little listening for which adult voice meant the house would stand. I went back to her then, slower than I wanted, and this time Claire did not step in front of me. I crouched beside the bed. Listen to me, I said. I should have torn this place apart years ago. I didn't. That's on me. But you are not spending another night behind this shelf. Claire stared at me like I had just kicked out the last brace holding up a house. You are not taking her anywhere in this condition, she said. I stood. Watch me. Martin stepped in then. Not between us exactly, but into the space where men like him have spent their whole lives believing they can improve things by making them orderly. Tom, he said, before anybody does something we can't unwind, let's move this into the conference room and get clear. I almost told him to go to hell. Instead, I looked at Anna. She was sitting on the edge of that bed with both feet on the floor now, one hand flat beside her on the blanket like she needed proof the mattress was still under her. Her eyes went from me to her mother to Martin and back again. The room had been teaching her for years that other people would decide what was best while she adjusted herself around it. I knew if I turned this into shouting, Claire would win one last time. So I bent and picked up the legal pad with the medication entries, then Anna's notebook. I slid the prescription bottles into the pocket of my jacket. After a second's hesitation, I went back through the office, took the fountain pen off Claire's desk, and put it in my shirt pocket. Claire saw that, and something in her face hardened. That is mine. No, I said. It never was. The conference room sat at the back of the suite, past the copy room in a narrow kitchenette with powdered creamer and paper cups, stacked like cones. I had fixed the hinge on that conference room door 2 winters earlier when it wouldn't shut right. Funny the things a man remembers when the floor is dropping out from under him. Martin pulled out the end chair for Anna. Claire started to guide her into the seat beside her, but Anna stopped halfway there. She looked at the chair, then at me, then moved past both of them and sat on the long side of the table nearest my hand. Nobody said anything. That silence was the first thing that felt right all day. Earl stayed by the door with his cap crushed in both hands. The receptionist and the payroll woman had vanished, though I could feel their listening in the walls. Claire took the chair opposite me. Martin sat at the head like this was still his room to manage. He took off his glasses, wiped them, put them back on. His hands were steadier than his mouth. All right, he said. Let's do this carefully. Claire folded her hands atop the table. If you'd walked in cold, you would have thought she was the injured party, called into one more difficult family scene to keep everyone from falling apart. Anna has had fragile periods, she said. You all know some version of that. What Tom stumbled into today was a private care arrangement I made to protect her from further destabilization while I worked toward a more permanent solution. I let her speak. That was part of it. Not interrupting. Letting every polished thing come fully out into the light. She was not imprisoned, Claire went on. She was sheltered. There is a difference, no matter how inflammatory Tom wants to sound right now. He sees one room, one moment, and decides he understands years of complexity. Martin gave a small nod, almost against his will. Habit, Claire went on. Tom loved Anna in his way, she said. And even then she couldn't help doing it, fitting me into the smaller sentence. But his presence has always been difficult for her in states of vulnerability. That is not cruelty. That is history. There it was again, the old verdict dressed in linen and calm. I slid the legal pad across the table toward Martin. Read the line from June 12th. He looked down. His eyes moved once, then again more slowly. He did not speak. I did. Read it out loud. Claire's head turned to him, Martin. But something had already shifted. Maybe it was Anna sitting by me. Maybe it was the pad in his hands. Maybe it was only that there comes a point when a decent man can either keep pretending he does not hear a thing or hear it and lose sleep forever. Martin cleared his throat. Increased PRN after agitation father. No one moved. I slid the notebook beside it. Now read April 19th. He opened it where the page had been bent back. His voice sounded thinner this time. I asked if Dad called. She said he's trying to move on in his own way. Anna closed her eyes. Claire leaned forward. Anna wrote during acute episodes. You cannot treat every line as reliable. She confused timelines. She attached meaning where there was none. I looked at my daughter. Anna. Her eyes opened again. Tired eyes. Not child eyes. Not broken either. You tell it, I said. Only what you can. Claire's voice sharpened. That is irresponsible. I did not look at her. Nobody's speaking for me now, and nobody's speaking for her. That was the first time Claire went still. Anna's fingers pressed into the wood edge of the table. I found papers, she said. Her voice was quiet, but the room bent toward it. At Grandma's house. After she died, she swallowed. In the cedar chest under the quilts, there were copies of things. Insurance documents, a police report, one page with handwriting all over it. Claire sat back. Anna, you were very unwell then. Anna kept talking. It was about Uncle David's crash. I had not heard that name spoken in this family in years. David Mercer had been Claire's younger brother, dead at 22 on a county road outside Waverly after hitting a tree hard enough to split the car around it. What I had been told at the time was simple and tragic. Wet road, bad bend, too fast. Claire's mother cried for 10 years straight in small installments. That was the family version. Anna looked at me then, and I saw how much it cost her to keep going. The report said another car was involved first, she said. A sideswipe. And the note said the driver had been drinking. Grandma paid someone. Then later there were estate changes after her husband died. Property moved around. Liability hidden. Mom knew. Claire's chair scraped the floor. That is enough. No, I said. I did not raise my voice. I did not need to. The word landed harder than shouting because all afternoon she had been deciding what enough meant. Earl spoke from the door then, surprising all of us. I remember the boxes, he said. Old banker's boxes from her mama's place. Brought in one Saturday. Your daughter crying in the back hall. Heard enough to know it wasn't about treatment. Claire swung on him. You were eavesdropping on private medical matters. Earl's face colored. No, ma'am. I was changing a ballast in the hall light because your assistant said it flickered. I wasn't trying to hear, but I did. Martin had stopped touching his glasses. He was looking not at Claire but at me, and there was something close to shame in it now. How much did you know? I asked him. He answered slowly. I knew Claire was handling things privately. I knew she said Anna was volatile and that direct paternal contact made her worse. I knew there had been older family records Anna became fixated on. I told myself confidentiality was the ethical lane. He looked down at the legal pad. I also told myself Claire was the steadier parent. He said it aloud, and that mattered. It mattered more than any apology could have in that moment, because the room had finally named the lie in the shape it had worn. Claire looked from him to me. Like betrayal was a language she had never expected to hear spoken back to her. "You're all making this filthy," she said. "You want simple villains because it lets you ignore what actual care costs. Do you have any idea what it was like trying to keep her from destroying herself? Trying to keep her from blowing apart everything that remained of this family?" I thought then of every year I had stood in our kitchen watching Claire stack plates, wipe counters, answer gently, manage birthdays, send thank-you notes, walk with me at funerals, and sleep on the far side of the bed with one hand curled under her cheek. I thought of how often I had mistaken her composure for goodness because it was easier than admitting I had married a woman who valued order more than freedom. My marriage ended there, though it had probably ended years before. "You didn't save this family," I said. "You saved the version of it where you stayed in charge." Claire opened her mouth, but nothing came. I took the notebook and turned to the page with Anna's line about the back porch light. "When she was little," I said, not to Claire but to the room, "storm nights scared her. She used to sit on the top step waiting for my truck to turn into the drive. Claire would tell her to come away from the window, but she'd wait anyway because she knew if the porch light hit that windshield, I was home." I looked at Anna. "I should have said softer things to you. I should have pushed harder years ago, both are true. But I did not leave you." Anna's face changed then, not all at once, just enough. Something in it unnodded. "I know," she said. Those 2 words were the real verdict. Everything after that was motion. Martin making calls with a different voice than before. Earl bringing water. Claire trying twice more to regain the language of procedure and failing because nobody in the room was willing to hear care arrangement the same way again. Someone from County Adult Protective Services arrived before sunset with a woman from a crisis team out of Columbus. Practical shoes, no perfume, direct eyes. They did not speak to me slowly. They asked Anna what she wanted. That alone nearly undid me. Claire was not handcuffed in front of us. Life is rarely so neat. But she was no longer the one giving shape to the scene. She stood by the window in her office while questions turned into notes, and notes turned into names, and the hidden room lost the protection of secrecy. Once she looked at me, maybe hoping for some private understanding between old spouses, one last act of keeping family pain indoors. I looked away. By the time the sun dropped low over Main Street, Anna and I were in a quiet rental cottage outside Circleville that the crisis team used sometimes when hospital wasn't the first right answer. There was a screened porch out back and 2 rocking chairs that had seen better paint. Somebody had left a folded Afghan over one of them and a box of saltines on the kitchen counter. Anna showered. When she came out, her hair was damp and combed straight back, showing more of her mother in her face than I had noticed in that office. She wore clean sweatpants and one of the plain t-shirts they'd found for her in a donated clothing closet. She looked exhausted, clear to the bone. We sat on the porch while the last heat lifted off the grass. Tree frogs had started up in the ditch beyond the fence. A porch light clicked on over the screen door behind us. I took the fountain pen from my pocket and held it out. She looked at it for a long second before taking it. Her hand shook once. "I thought she threw this away," she said. "So did I." There was a yellow legal pad on the little wicker table between us. She pulled it onto her lap, unscrewed the pen, and held it over the paper without touching down yet. I did not lean in. I did not hurry her. That was part of what I knew now. At last the nib met the page. Slowly, like somebody remembering herself one stroke at a time, she wrote, "Anna Louise Mercer." The ink came out dark and steady. She looked at the name, then over at me. Her eyes filled, but she did not break. Neither did I. I reached over and laid my hand flat on the arm of her chair, close enough that she could cover it if she wanted, far enough that she did not have to. After a moment, she did.